Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of the Bearded Mystic podcast, and I'm your host, Rahul N Singh. Thank you for joining today, as we will be looking at the Vedanta Sara, as I was discussing yesterday, that we will start this. And if you have not done already, please like and please leave a comment at the end of this video. Just give me your feedback and do subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast streaming app, please rate and review, and please follow the podcast to keep getting notified of new episodes as I try to do them, as I try to upload every day. So as we begin the Vedanta Sara, it is very important for us to just do a quick recap on yesterday's episode, that it's all about having the basic understanding. With the basic understanding, we can move forward, we can understand the deeper aspects of the truth when it comes to the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and also the Bhagavad Gita. And as I mentioned, those were in that list order, in that order of the list, that's the way we should study. So and it makes sense, because if we have the basics correct, we can understand everything else very easily. Now, we'll start with the first verse, and that is, he says, "For the fulfillment of my highest desire, I take refuge in the self, the basis of all existence, indivisible, eternal, conscious, blissful, and beyond the reach of speech and mind." So if you think about it, the whole of spirituality is in that one verse itself. First he says, "For the fulfillment of my highest desire." Now, what would be our highest desire? Now, see, many of us, we desire a better car, a better home, a better job, a better college education, better grades. Yeah, we're constantly wanting something that is temporary, of this world. But the fulfillment of my highest desire would mean that it's about transcending those desires that have an end point, like their happiness has an end point. So what would be fulfilling as a desire? Now, that would be to understand one's true nature, or Jivan Mukti, to be liberated while alive, to be free from suffering, to be free from all notions of body and mind identification. So this is why he says, "I take refuge in the self." Now, it's not some separate self that it's talking about. It's talking about the true self, our true nature, this Atman, this Brahman, this formless awareness. That's what Sadhanandaji is talking about. And then he says it's the basis of all existence. See, for existence to arise, this formless awareness has to be, this Brahman has to be. It is the cause behind everything. So if there is creation, that power of Maya, it emanates from Brahman. So this whole world is nothing but an extension of Brahman. It's not Brahman itself. It doesn't stand by itself, because it's a projector. It's a projection. It's an appearance. But we can understand that its power, its cause, comes from the ultimate. Now, then it describes the ultimate. So, when we may think, well, if you're saying it's the basis of all existence, well, is it in duality? No. First word, indivisible. It cannot be divided. Therefore, it can be multiplied. Yeah. So, it's all the play of the one that appears to be many. Yeah. That's the way to understand this pure consciousness, this formless awareness that we are. Now, see, the point is here that if anybody had to ask you, well, what is this truth? What is Shiva? What is Brahman? What is the Atman? What is Nirakar? What is Vaiguru? What is God? One should have the answer at the tip of their tongue, because it's your very nature. And if one hasn't got there, then we obviously have work to do in spirituality, and it's important for us to acknowledge that we have work to do in terms of spiritual practice and spiritual understanding. So that's one thing. So when we say indivisible, then that means that there is a oneness between there's only oneness here. Yeah, there's no two. Yeah, there's no duality. There's not me and Brahman. There's not me, the self, and the higher self. There is only the higher self. There's an appearance of a limited self, but I only know it's limited because of that avidya, that ignorance being removed. Without that ignorance being removed, I will think there's a little me and there's a big God. Yeah, and I'll be in that little duality. So it's indivisible. So even if one tries to separate themselves from this God, from this Brahman, it's impossible. That's why the non-dual truth is the most common sense kind of reality that one can acknowledge. To say that it can be divided, it's dualistic, that means we have not understood the nature of consciousness, the nature of our true self. That means that we see ourselves separate to other people, to other things, even to consciousness itself, that there's a me and there's the awareness of me. No, there is only awareness. This me that we're talking about, this body and mind, will the awareness remain in the body after physical death? No, it won't. So it remains regardless of physical death or physical birth or non-physicality. And this is where we understand it's indivisible. Then eternal. So likewise, it's beyond birth and beyond death. It's here forever. There's never been a time when this pure awareness, there's never been a time where it hasn't been, and there never will be a time when it won't be there. This pure consciousness will remain eternal. It will remain here. Because if it's indivisible, then it doesn't belong to time and space. And therefore, we can understand its true nature, that it's eternal. So, again, we know that its nature is beyond time. So it's beyond the past, present and future. So, for example, the teaching of just being in the now is not complete, because we have to even transcend the now. Because if you investigated the now, you wouldn't be able to keep up with it from a mental point of view, from a mind point of view. Whenever you say this is now, the now has escaped. So that's why it's better to say it's eternal. And then in that everything is said. Yeah, past, present and future. Conscious, aware. That's the direct way of us knowing. The direct realization is through awareness. That I'm aware of ignorance. This ignorance that doesn't exist. This ignorance that is just an appearance, that's a projecting power and veils this Brahman. But once I address this avidya, once I address this ignorance, it goes away. And that only happens through the direct path of awareness. That once I realize this awareness is formless, it's alive within me right now, and it will remain even after this physical death. So its nature is conscious, its nature is awareness. And that's how we directly experience it in this human frame. Now, that doesn't mean that the human frame is dependent on this awareness. Or awareness is dependent on this human frame, shall I say. Actually, this human frame can function because of consciousness. Think about it. If we weren't conscious beings, if we weren't aware of ourselves, we would not be asking about the meaning of life. We will not be wondering about if there is life beyond the stars. We will not be thinking about if there is more when we die. That means there's a certain awareness of even after death, that there must be something after death. What is speaking that? It is awareness. It's not the body that's saying it. The body knows it's going to be inert. The mind knows something travels. And that's what we learn in Advaita Vedanta. And we may get to this in Vedanta Sara. It's blissful. It's happiness. It has nothing more to give to us. It's got nothing less to give to us. It's happy. Happy, as I always say, what my guru used to say is that bliss is true happiness beyond the senses. See, sense gratification can only give us a certain amount of happiness, a certain amount of joy, a certain amount of peace. But to be in blissfulness is something that's available 24/7. And you experience it right here, right now. It's beyond time. It's not that you have to access bliss. Bliss is always here. It's inexhaustible, just like this consciousness, just like this Brahman. And it's permanent. All these attributes that have been mentioned is permanence. Indivisible, permanence. Eternal, permanence. Conscious, awareness, permanence. Blissful, permanence. And do we really want this happiness beyond the senses? Do we really want to experience it? Do we really want to be in that state where there's only peace, where there's not even a flicker of thought, a flicker of imagination, a flicker of even a vritti, a movement of a thought? Not even the thought fully developed, even the movement in between the development of a thought, even then. So bliss is beyond all this. And that's why in the final line he says, and beyond the reach of speech and mind. See, the speech can only reach you there. The mind can only take you so far. Even the speech can only take you so far. What I say, well, there will be a limitation. Because this truth is a paradox in itself. If I say it's far, it's also near. If I say it's fast, it's also slow. If I say it moves, it's also still. So it's beyond the reach of speech and mind. The mind cannot reach it. It can try. It can get a hint, a fragrance, but it cannot get to the flower, the source of that fragrance. Only awareness can get to the source of that fragrance. So awareness is the only one that can take you there. You'll get the hint. The mind will be able to somewhat translate, but something always gets lost in translation. Funny enough, I'm reading a translation. But this truth can be heard. Yes, it can be heard. In the silence of meditation, when the mind is silent, when the surrounding is silent, it's experienced. We just have to be open to that. This awareness itself carries the complete understanding. As long as we are not just physically listening, like you're just watching this. No, if we take it deeper into the mind and thought, and then take it deeper into the contact with awareness, then slowly and slowly awareness will erode away the ignorance of the notion that we're the body and mind. So this is what happens when we go beyond speech, beyond mind. It cannot, we can, again, like for example, when I say indivisible, when we say eternal, these are things that are experienced, but the word doesn't get close to what is being experienced. And that's something you have to intuitively grasp. And if you've, stayed with the Brahmgyan, stayed with the knowledge of Brahman, the knowledge of truth, if you stayed with it, if you have it immersed in it, then it will become you can grasp what I'm saying instantaneously. But if you haven't, and your mind is still doubting it, that means it's good. That means there's some doubt, there's something working. There's a recognition that this could be the truth. So there's doubts that arise. And then there may be that, oh, I'm just listening. And therefore it just stays there. I hear it and then I'm off to chasing the other desire that I have. So initially we got to understand that what he's describing here has to be our state too. So when we read this text, remember we got to read it in that sense. So when I read it, I've got to understand that it's coming from the highest, for the fulfillment of my highest desire first, Jiva Mukti, that will be in my mind. Then I'm taking refuge in the self. So when I read this, I'm reading it as being in the shelter of the self, in the shelter of formless awareness, in the shelter of Brahman, Nirakar. And then knowing that it's the basis of all existence. So one is not reading from ignorance. One is actually reading from knowledge, from true vidya. Yeah. Then he says, after worshipping the Guru, who both by name and by his state of being free from the illusion of duality, or appearance of duality, embodies the essence of his name, Advayananda, I proceed to describe the essence of Vedanta according to my understanding. So, first of all, he says, after worshipping the Guru, where do you get the knowledge from? It's from the Guru. People think today that they can bypass a Guru. They don't need a Guru. They listen to one lecture of Jai Krishnamurti who says, do not have a Guru. But then he himself is teaching. But what he's saying is, don't give up your authority on the truth. That's all he's saying. That if the Guru has achieved, good, but have you achieved? This is the important thing. So after worshipping the Guru, so what does the worship mean? It's a gratitude for the wisdom of this indivisible, eternal, conscious and blissful Brahman, self, Atman, formless awareness, God, whatever name we want to give, who both by name and by his state of being free from the appearance of duality, who both by name and by his state of being free from the appearance of duality, he is beyond duality. He knows that this appearance that we see, this Maya, it appears to be dualistic, but actually, remember, it's what the basis of all existence is? Brahman. So regardless of these names and states, it's all that one indivisible Brahman. And he embodies the essence of his name, Advayananda. So the name of his Guru means that this reality is non-dual in nature. So he says, I proceed to describe the essence of Vedanta according to my understanding. So he would now describe Vedanta. So the main important thing is to understand that, there's a power in names too. I remember, and there's a suggestion too. Like, for example, I remember my uncle, who was my first role model. If you watched my video about my spiritual journey, I mentioned this. I mentioned about him, and he said that he would tell me that Rahul was the name of Mahatma Buddha's son, so Gautama the Buddha, his son. And I used to think, oh wow, that's what my name means. I'm the son of Buddha. Now, with that means that you have to live up to the name. And it's interesting. I don't know whether my uncle had that intention, but it became a journey for me to realize what spirituality is. So, one has to embody the essence of the name too, if you have a meaning to your name. But remember, and by his state of being free from the appearance of duality. So, one thing we need to understand here is that we do not get stuck in the appearance of duality. We are free from it. We know it's dualistic. We know that it's not the complete truth. Its fragmentation means that it's not. It shows us the senses are showing us something different. When we know that the truth is indivisible, then we understand that this duality is just an appearance. And even the basis of this, even for the duality to exist, it has to come from the indivisible one, because that is the basis of all existence. So really, at the end of these two verses, and then we'll obviously, in the next episode on the Vedanta Sara, we will go into the other verses. But what we need to understand is this truth is beyond speech and beyond the reach of the mind. So when you're reading this, when you're listening to this, do not think from those aspects. Use those aspects only if you don't want to have the direct understanding of the truth. But in this first verse itself, there is the direct truth there revealed. And then in the next one, just remember that only that person who understands the reality can share the reality. Many people may talk about God realization, being enlightened, but how many of them can take you to your true nature directly? How many of them can take you to formless awareness? How many of them have even given you a glimpse? Forget about anything else, just a glimpse of this formless awareness. Only those teachers are true, who can show you this truth, who can show you this reality, who can highlight this reality for you, to show you that it's right here in front of you, it's not anywhere far. We all have the strength to do that, and if we follow the teacher's instructions, we can get there. And so take this Vedanta Sara series to be an important base for what we'll be doing in the course. If we have a good understanding of this, the course will be a lot easier for us. We will understand it a lot more straight away, but that's up to you. But this resting in formless awareness course, again, it's for really hardcore, I would say, real seekers for truth. And this Vedanta Sara series is just helping us to navigate the course a little easier. Okay, so we'll carry on next time with verse 3 at least, and I hope that after this episode, if somebody asked you, what is consciousness, what is Brahman, what is the Atman, what is God, you should have the answer. Okay, take care everyone. Remember to like, comment and subscribe, and do follow me on Discord where we can continue the conversation. Take care everyone. Namaste.